Welcome to Writing Paper 2, Synthesis, Defining the Issue or Problem for English 102, Freshman Composition. Let's take a look at the Paper 2 guidelines. First off, your paper must be 2 to 3 pages in length. That's 600 words minimum. It needs to be typed, and you need to follow the MLA style of documentation. Clearly define the issue or problem of your approved topic, and use your outline from Paper 1 to help guide you through this process. You also need to include sources to help define the issue or problem. That's where the synthesis comes in. You need to have a minimum of 3 to 5 sources in this paper. And then lastly, use parenthetical notation to cite your sources in the paper. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the paper being a synthesis. So what is synthesis? Synthesis means putting ideas from many sources together in one essay or presentation. After reading several books, watching movies, and participating in a variety of class activities, your task is to organize some of the information around a theme or a question, make generalizations, and then present information, which can be statistics, quotes, examples, in a logical way to support your argument. Remind yourself that a synthesis is not a summary, a comparison, or a review. Rather, a synthesis is a result of an integration of what you heard, read, and your ability to use this learning to develop and support a key thesis or argument. There are 2 types of synthesis you will do in writing your position or proposal papers. The first is explanatory synthesis, which is what we will use in Paper 2 to define the issue or problem. The second type of synthesis is argument synthesis, which is what we will use when we get to Paper 3. Let's take a closer look at each. Explanatory synthesis. An explanatory synthesis helps readers to understand a topic. Writers explain when they divide a subject into its component parts and present them to the reader in a clear and orderly fashion. Explanations may entail descriptions that recreate in words some object, place, event, sequence of events, or state of affairs. The purpose in writing an explanatory synthesis is not to argue a particular point, but rather to present the facts in a reasonable, objective manner. The explanatory synthesis does not go beyond what is obvious from a careful reading of the sources. You will be writing an explanatory synthesis paper for Paper 2 in this course. Argument synthesis. The purpose of an argument synthesis is for you to present your own point of view, supported, of course, by relevant facts drawn from sources and presented in a logical manner. The thesis of an argumentative essay is debatable. It makes a proposition about which reasonable people could disagree, and any 2 writers working with the same source materials could conceive of and support other opposite theses. We'll talk more about argument synthesis in Module 3. So let's talk about the 2 papers that you have to write. First is the position paper and the position paper outline. Paper 2 is essentially the introduction and the first part of the longer position paper that will be due at the end of the semester. You must synthesize your information to define the issue. The introduction should clearly identify that issue. It should be written in a way that catches the reader's attention. The beginning of the position paper may contain several paragraphs and pages, and each paragraph should present an idea or main concept that clarifies a portion of the issue and is supported by evidence or facts. Evidence can be primary source quotations, statistical data, interviews with experts, and indisputable dates or events. The body may begin with some background information and should incorporate a discussion of both sides of the issue. Now, just as with the position paper, Paper 2 for the proposal paper is also essentially the introduction and first part of the longer proposal paper that will be due at the end of the semester. You must synthesize your information to define the problem this time. The introduction should clearly identify the problem and convince readers that the problem exists and is serious enough to need solving. You will need to establish your writer's presence, also known as pathos from the rhetorical triangle. Know what your underlying assumptions are so that you may effectively address them in your essay. If your reader sees the problem as just the way things are, rather than issues that need to be changed, you will need to be able to challenge the underlying assumptions. So in conclusion, remember, this paper is a piece of the whole. There will be 2 more pieces that will follow. Also remember that you are using your sources to support your ideas and claims, not the other way around. This is not about finding someone else's argument and saying that they're yours. Make your own arguments, then use your sources to support you. Keep in mind that original thought and insightful analysis are required for an A paper. An A paper will create a dialogue between the essay author's ideas and her sources, and also among the sources themselves. Take special care to address your audience in an appropriate manner. Make sure you establish your credibility on the subject and that you provide sufficient information to make your argument, which is your thesis, convincing.